we are live. You can start.
Okay, this is a special meeting of the Prospect City Council. Today is July 28th. The time is 3:04. Council members Fulcher and Swan are absent. The other four members are present. And I will turn it over to anybody on the council who wants to start.
We've been given the information that we asked for at the last meeting in regard to maintenance projects. And I want to thank Ron Cundiff. I have questions in regard to it, but it's lovely. It's laid out. It's got estimated costs and it's got priorities attached to it, which we appreciate. The other thing that we've been given is Parks and Recreation, a budget request. And that has a lot of detailed information in it too. So we appreciate both of those. At the moment, we are still talking about maintenance after our last meeting. And I guess I'd like to ask questions on the projects first, unless somebody else has.
No, go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead.
The top of it is as we know, the air conditioner up in the library and the police department again went out last Friday. And we have discovered that it is 19 years old at the end of its lifetime. And we have to make some decisions. And Ron has come in with what I think is a very sensible approach to it. In the early days, when they did the library and moved the police up to the second floor of the old building, they ended up putting both of them on the same heating and air conditioning system. I never have thought that made sense because the police are there 24/7. It's a small enclosed cubicles. There are always people there. The library is a large open space. It has people in finite periods of time. And so the recommendation would be for 2 coils rather than what we have now, and ductwork that would allow the separation of the library from the police department. It would also allow us to put a programmable thermostat on the library, and so we wouldn't be air conditioning and heating nights or weekends. My question is, some of this is already underway, some of it has to go forward. The total looks like it's going to be $18,000. I need to know if that's correct, and what component of this is not covered at all in the current budget that we're going through.
The total is correct. It will be 18 and a half actually.
Okay.
And basically none of this was planned for, so no, it is not in the budget.
So none of it's in the budget.
Nope.
The ductwork actually is included in the new pages for the public works portion of the workbook that I provided last week, I believe. The $8,500 for the ductwork is included in 7313C City Hall Facility Projects with a total of $23,500. The new air conditioners, they are not currently part of that. We have not had a chance to update these pages based on Ron's list. We wanted to see how today's meeting went.
Okay, so essentially you've got $8,500 in, and we would need an additional roughly $11,000.
Yes.
Okay. Where would we be placing these units?
I'm sorry.
Where are you going to put the units?
Where the existing ones are. The old ones will be removed and the new ones put in.
Okay, I thought there was one now and you're gonna have two.
No, actually, it looks like one unit, but there's two air handlers up there. Both of those will be replaced.
So it will go in the closet in the library?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And it fits where it is right now? You've got enough room up there?
We're hoping so.
Okay.
Yes, it should fit just fine.
Okay, thank you.
I've already had the air conditioning guy, the heat HVAC guy out, and he's looked at it, and he feels it's a pretty confident plan, so.
All right, thank you. Do you want to ask anything? Okay, the fire escape. You're just replacing boards and resealing it?
Yep.
Have we ever explored the fact that it would be nice not to have a wooden fire escape?
We had when we had to redo it because it was cantilevered. If you remember before, it was cantilevered on wooden boards coming out of the wall, and we had to put the steel frame on it.
Uh-huh.
We looked at it then, and it was pretty steep to do so. We haven't explored it since. I don't remember off the top of my head what the estimate was, but it was pretty high. I think it would be an excellent idea because I've always made the joke it's an oxymoron having a wooden fire escape.
Okay. The parking lot, the paving committee is talking about it. And we have 3 levels of fixing the current parking lot. And your $10,000 placeholder isn't far off the middle value that's been given. So we'll be looking at that as we continue with our paving committee. The side door refurbishing, that's the front door to the council chambers?
Correct.
Okay, what happens when you get in there and find out that the wood has got termites? You don't think that's, because it doesn't look like you're replacing everything.
No, we should. I checked it out pretty good. We should be able to just pull the trim off and sand everything down, refinish it. Showed it to John. Me and John looked at it and both felt that replacing the entire door was a little excessive. But we should be fine.
Okay.
How much is replacing the entire door?
In that situation, because you've got a whole facade you're going to have to create. Because I don't know if you've noticed or not, there's a big wood facade all around it. Well, but I would guesstimate at least 15,000 by the time you purchase a door and do all the facade work. And
Even with the side, I'm looking at it right now. Even with the side lights and everything, just get to one unit.
You need to look at it from the outside. It's not a cut and dry thing. I'm going to guesstimate 8 foot by 15 foot of wood around the door on the outside.
Okay.
It looks much different outside.
I'll be right back.
Okay. While you're doing that, it looks like you're thinking that this might come out of road aid, and I don't understand that at all.
I'm sorry.
I don't think you meant that, or I don't understand the abbreviation.
Give me a second to find it. Yeah, that's a typo. Road aid should not be on there.
Okay, thanks. I thought you were getting very creative.
That would be kind of hard to explain.
Thank you. Okay.
Sorry, I missed you guys.
Okay.
Ron, I wouldn't mind getting a new estimate for the door because I believe that if you pull off just a brick mold that surrounds it, you could get a door with the lights for not much more. than $3,000 without still replacing everything
I don't
above
see
it.
it happening, but we can have somebody come in and do it.
I'm sorry?
Hold on, I got two people talking to me at the same time.
Okay.
I don't see it happening, but get somebody to come in and look at it.
Okay.
The estimate that I gave you is for me refinishing it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we've talked about the landings damage before. Can you tell me specifically what, are we talking about the masonry structure as you go in on the right?
Correct.
Okay. And was this an estimate from somebody who does that kind of work?
Hey,
Yes,
Ron,
actually-
Ron, I thought it was all three, not just the one on the right.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is all three structures need to be resealed. The one facing the exit side, far exit side, needs to, that's the one that's got the storm damage to it. All of it needs to be resealed and point tuck done on it.
Does this estimate include all three?
Yes.
When the next one is the electric refurbishing of the Hunting Creek entrance, and I know we've talked about that before too. Do we know when your meeting will take place so that we can come up with a dollar figure for that?
This is Randy's project. He is currently trying to set up a meeting with me and the people who are on the lighting committee up there. I haven't heard a date yet, so.
The entrance to Hunting Creek, I see that it looks like it's mainly replaced other than a black fence. Was that paid for by the company who wrecked it? Prospect didn't have any cost in that, correct?
Oh, you're talking about the, where the truck went through it?
Yes, the brick wall.
It will be. I'm filing an insurance claim.
Great.
What about the boat launch? How is that going?
It's done.
It's done, and this,
It's done, and the boat launch has been repaired too.
and it looks, is that money in the budget?
I believe it was. Laura, turn your mic on.
I see that, 8611.
Yes, it had originally been 6,500 and then we increased it to 14,000 to include the 7,500 for the dam and the boat launch.
No, this is not money that the Parks Committee is expending. This is money the administration is expending on parks maintenance. Is
Right,
that
the Parks
correct?
Committee had
Correct.
asked for 6,500 and then since these repairs were taking place in the parks, we added them to this total.
Okay. Do you want to tell us about Bridgepoint signs, Ron?
I think Ron heard you.
I'm sorry, I didn't. I'm bouncing between phone calls, so Chris is on his way.
Thank you. The Bridgepoint signs, you want to tell us about those?
Would be the street signs.
Uh-huh.
We have a program that we started in-house that we can refinish them for about $100 a pole, and they look brand new when we're done. Bridgepoint signs are well past due. They're faded, and a matter of fact, I don't even think they're up to code right now. As far
And
as
those can come out of road aid money?
Yes.
Okay. I also find on page 13 of our budget where it says Bridgepoint signs refurbished.
Yeah, that
So
hasn't
are
been,
we saying
that,
that,
that has not been updated yet.
so are we saying that that doesn't need to be there?
What line are you looking at, Sandra?
Page 13, 7515.
Actually, that can come out of that line.
Okay, and it should go in the restricted fund? Or what we're gonna use the restricted funds for?
Actually, it could go on 7515. It could come out of that 3,000.
Yeah, but if we can take it out of restricted money, we should use that first.
Okay.
Okay. Now, when you were calculating that, you must have had other signs that you thought about too, because that line
Correct.
7515 has other money in it. You were going to do some other things with that money?
Correct. Most of that is for when like stop signs get ran over or other signs get run down and we have to replace them.
Okay.
Or it's because what's become popular lately is being tagged. Sorry, guys.
So should we remove 1,500 from 7515?
Actually, it's 1400.
That's fine, I was just rounding off, that's fine.
Yeah, if you're gonna use that out of restricted funds, then yeah.
Well, except that you already spent 2,000 this year, last year, and Bridgepoint wasn't an issue.
No, but we've been replacing signs throughout the city. We did a lot in
Okay.
Indian Creek.
So how much, ignoring Bridgepoint? Well, not ignoring Bridgepoint, we can always take the signs out of road aid. If this, what kinds of sign replacement would you be doing that we cannot take out of road aid?
There's none, actually, unless we get, because anything else would be park signs, which will come out of parks. No, everything's road related.
So we could put $1,000 in this account just for placeholder to take care of whatever we haven't talked about today, and that would probably be enough?
I'd go 1,500,
Okay.
just to be on the safe side. Don't foresee doing a lot of replacements as far as street signs, as far as regulatory signs go.
Okay, tell us about the exit side of City Hall.
You've all seen it. It's where the curb there is too sharp for the garbage truck and fire trucks to make that turn. So it's the curb has been mashed down over the years and it just needs to be cleaned up. That's why it's lower on the priority list. It could stand to be done, but it doesn't have to be.
Is the radius gonna get a little bit, smaller, so there's more pavement, or is it just gonna get put back exactly the same, radius that it is?
What I would like to do is actually add just a little bit of pavement in there. Then when we eventually redo the parking lot, we can make it more solid. Yeah, we can widen that turn is what it basically is what I'm looking for.
Actually, that was recommended by the people that we had evaluate it. And there was consideration of that in the estimated expenses.
Okay.
They agree with you that it needs it. Now, what they would not have probably dealt with is anything that was not close to the pavement. In other words, if you're going to do something with the wall around the dumpster, for example, it would not have been one of their considerations.
No, it would be on the opposite side from the dumpster.
Okay. Anybody with any more questions? Do you want to tell us about the culvert at Cowley Park?
Well, anybody who was up there for the 4th of July witnessed it last year where the kids were sliding in the water. It just needs to be, it's close to the flagpole, you know, where anybody that goes down Westover Drive sees where the water ponds right there because it's not making it to the drainage culvert. Just needs to be redug out. And we had talked about lining it with some river rock and to make it look nice. And it's basically
How will this affect the forestation plans
not at all.
intent to put trees? It's not where they would put trees?
No.
Okay, and you want to tell us about the 5 islands and the estates of Hunting Creek?
That I put on there just because they are in horrible shape, just from misplantings over the years and stuff by different companies. We get pretty much monthly complaints on them, and they do need to be refinished. That was working off of a bid. If you remember last year, I had asked for some extra money to redo them, and that is the bid from that actually.
So we probably anticipate that it would be higher now?
I wouldn't think much, if any. Greenscapes is really good with working with us.
Since you're removing plantings, are any of these trees, and is the tree committee involved, the forestation committee?
No, the majority of the plantings are grass, and the others are shrubs, which is landscaping. So.
Ron, that's what we wrote off, you and Sandra looked at last spring.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Would you like to tell us about the roof for the salt barn?
Yeah, it's a canvas roof. It's gotten tears in it from tree limbs falling through, and it's time to replace it. We could look into putting a hard roof on it, but I'm thinking that would be much more. So might be something down the road.
Where is the salt barn at? Is it right out back?
No, it's it's down Happy Hollow.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, I think it was last replaced in 2012. So if you consider
Yeah.
it's a canvas roof,
Yeah.
Yeah.
How big is that barn? How large is it? What's length and width? Do you know?
Roughly 50 foot wide by 150 deep.
Okay.
Not nearly big enough.
The area that it's on belongs to the country club, is that correct?
Correct, and we lease it from the country club. I think we have an agreement with them that they let us build the salt barn on it.
Do we actually pay for a lease with that?
No, I think what we do is we agree that we will snow plow their parking lot when it snows.
And is 7,000 roughly what it cost last time?
Yes.
All right, then the next one you've got is keyless access to City Hall to replace keyed locks.
That is a Laura project. She's something she's been wanting for a while. We end up rekeying locks about every 2 years. Just because
The
either
last time we did it was 2014, I believe, when Holly took over as city administrator. And this is really just a wish list item to modernize our access system.
How many do you need?
Well, it kind of depends on how we're going to go about it. This number, I pulled it off of the first website on my Google search this afternoon, and it estimated 400 to 1,500 per entry, and I guessed it maybe 3 exterior entries and 5 interior entries. But it's going to kind of depend on what system we look into getting. That one was specifically for keypads. I understand key card entries are a little more expensive. So this is certainly an area that could use further exploration. This was a last minute add-on.
So right now you've got one keypad, correct, in the back?
Yes,
And you'd add them to the exterior doors.
right. Replace that one and then have one here and one out front. And then several interior doors would have keyless entry as well.
How does this work if the fire department gets in?
I believe that they're actually provided with an access code.
We're not worried about codes.
I see. Well, I know you've got access and whatnot.
No, a lot of times there's a general emergency code that would allow us to get in.
That would make sense, yeah.
Okay. What's not on here that we've talked about in the last few months is Putney Pond.
as in reference to.
As
The
in
pond
the
itself?
spillway? No, well, no, that's millions, but in terms of the spillway,
This is Greg. Hasn't that already been addressed, Ron, by, I think it was QK4, it was $4,500 or something?
No, that was that was the repair of the overtopping. We have never really looked at replacing the spillway because it's gonna be a lot.
what would it cost us? I know this isn't a fair question. What would it cost us for an engineering study to look at the spillway?
I couldn't begin to tell you. Engineers aren't cheap, I can tell you that, but.
I'm sure that's true. Is there a way we could obtain a dollar figure for that? Because the spillway has come, I've been around a while, and the spillway has come up over and over again, and we don't do anything. And it sounds like we need somebody to take and do an engineering study on it to tell us how long it's going to last, what the problems are, if it goes, how much it would cost to replace it.
Well, the way it's built, and that's actually incorrect, we have done several things to the spillways since I've been here. The way it's built, it's not going to disappear. It's not going to blow out if you look at it. If we get a flood big enough where that spillway blows out, we've got bigger issues. Really, the only part that's bad would be the far right-hand wall. And we've already replaced the left-hand side and the front side. Really, there's not a lot to replace.
How much would it cost us?
But to redo the entire spillway would be.
How much would it cost us to have somebody look at it?
I'm not an engineer. I couldn't tell you that. I can call QK4 and have them give us a report. But
I think that wouldn't hurt, as long as we're going to look at issues that have come up in the past and might come up in the future. We may as well have a feeling for what we're talking about.
And what exactly will we be looking to do?
Getting a real engineering study to look at what, for example, you talked about the one wall. What condition is the wall in? How much longer can the wall be expected to stay up? If it were to go, how much roughly would it cost to replace it? Would it take anything else with it? Those kinds of things.
So you basically just want a structural report.
Yeah, but with some detail on it. Some engineering studies are pretty glossy. One of the other things that has been brought to my attention a number of times in the last 6 months is the culvert that goes over Hunting Creek Drive across from where Smithfield Green will be going in. Oh, I thought I said Hunting Creek. Anyway, I wondered if we had ever had anyone take a look at that.
No. It's not really come up before. I think Frank's really the only one who's mentioned it.
Actually, other people now have. I think part of it is the planned new development over there has got people looking around. And I don't know if there's an issue or not. It doesn't look very pretty if you stand there on the golf course. But that isn't, I wonder if we could have somebody take a look at that also.
Yeah.
Sandra, are you talking about where the little creek comes down under the road?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes, the little creek that will be coming out of Hunting Green.
Actually, it runs beside it, but yeah.
Yeah, it does. You're
Little
right.
Hunting Creek to be exact.
Do either of you gentlemen have anything else you'd like to ask?
Not on this list.
So what is the total incremental cost for this list?
I'm sorry, Don, you need to speak up to your
Total
microphone.
cost for this
What's
list.
the incremental cost for the list? I see a couple things that you put into the budget.
You're talking about the cost of everything, Don, it's $84,500.
Thank you.
Plus the ones that we don't have figures for.
Right.
Okay.
Folks, are we good? Would anyone object if I went back to something else that we didn't finish at the last meeting?
Certainly.
Okay, I wanted to make sure we were finished with that. And thank you, Ron, for a great report, and Sandra for leading us through that. That was good. I'd like to go back to, and I think we've all received a copy of the Forestation Board report, which I think was excellent. At the last meeting, we had several questions, the type of trees and so on and so forth. And the Forestation Board has answered those questions, and in so doing has provided us a report. So I'd like to go back to page, let's see, 13. And there's $6,325 that is in there now for the Cali Park tree planting. And I think at the last meeting, we were concerned with the types of trees, and we wanted to make sure that Ms. Hanlon and the rest of the Forestation Board had verified that those trees would in fact be the appropriate size for that area, and they have done so. They've come back. So I would like to see this stay in the budget. We haven't spent any money on trees in a couple of years. And so.
Actually,
I wanted to-
we haven't
sorry?
taken anything out of the budget yet, and we have not voted on anything, as Randy has said on several occasions, until we finish it. I think I have not had a chance to read the forestation report yet. It does look very complete, and I appreciate all the work that went into it. There's one question I've got in regard to this, and that is there is still approximately $6,000 in the restricted funds for planting. And I don't understand why we aren't using that if there are critical needs for planting trees. Maybe somebody can explain that for me.
Good question. Laura?
What restricted fund are you talking about? What restricted fund are we talking about? Yeah,
There are several restricted funds that we've restricted in the general fund budget, and one of those is for trees. And I could be wrong, but my perception is that the money came from what we got as they went and dug up Hunting Creek. And they actually there's been a lot of work around here, and they've given us money for trees. And I think that it's left over either from the sewer district or the water district. And I wondered why we wouldn't spend that first, is my question.
Laura, can you help me out on this?
I don't know how. This is a Lee Tucci question.
No, on these restricted funds.
Right, the June financial report, the second page where it lists assets and liabilities, you go down to net position, it lists all the different restricted funds, and she's referring to the one that's identified as reforestation. It's $962.78.
Where'd that come from and how did it get restricted?
But see, there's another 4,660.
That's parks money, and most of that, in fact, I believe all of that are the payments we received for doing the trail bash the first couple of years we did it. So those are specifically for parks.
Okay, but this is a park. This is Kelly Park that we're putting these trees into.
Well, that's something where Lee and Linda will have to discuss between themselves.
Okay.
There's also in that tree management category, $2,300 in 8313 ash tree treatments. I assume we want to keep up with that. We've done such a good job on that so far. And then tree maintenance, 16,540. That includes removals, pruning, and planting care. Any concerns over any of those?
Well, not at the moment, but again, we're not voting on anything now until we finish and have all the totals to add up.
The only thing I could add
We
to
have not
that,
approved anything to date.
the only thing I could add to that is that one storm and that line is more than likely blown. So you got to kind of factor in that too, because any trees that we with the city would be responsible for are included in that. That's not just forestation.
Correct. This is not a forestation budget.
Right.
Correct.
So I just want to see if anyone had any concerns for those amounts of money or any questions.
No concerns. I have not had a chance to review the documents that they gave us. They were delivered to us yesterday. And I certainly will look them over carefully in the future. And I appreciate how much work went into their creating them.
That sounds good. So we can review that the next time we meet then.
Well, except we're not separating any component of this budget out right now until we have numbers that we can balance with in the end.
Right. Are we going to talk about the Parks and Recreation budget?
Well, we're not there yet. We've kind of gotten to the point where we looked at the beginnings of, somebody's making noise again.
Okay, that's fine. I'd like to mention something new. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
We know something now that is new and it's budget related that we didn't know the last time we met. And this is a matter of transparency to everyone. The KIPTA met last Thursday. That would have been the 23rd of July. And at that meeting, KIPTA approved the city of Prospect for a US 42 study grant of up to $300,000. Now, I want to add here that there were 3 others that were approved, 3 other cities, all of them were $300,000. And I mentioned that because Herb Schulhafer, who is the chair of this working group that's been looking into US 42 safety and lighting, has been hard at work and determined that our particular study will cost much less. We don't know exactly, but we're thinking maybe 200,000, maybe 250,000. So this 300,000 is just to make sure that everything is covered, and that's kind of a standard thing that KIPTA has been doing, or at least did this year. KIPTA said the same thing. They said to us in meetings that you won't need the 300,000, you'll need something less. And then we also talked to the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, a representative with them, and he also concurred. He said, folks, if you spend 250, I'll be surprised. So we don't know exactly what it's going to be, but I think I can say relatively safe-wise that our part, if the council approves it, and this is coming out maybe in another month or 2, and when it happens, the council will receive a full report from the working group or from the working group representative, so you'll know exactly all the details and so on and so forth. But should the council approve it, then our responsibility will be 20% of that. So I'm going to say that the most it will be is 50,000. That's going on what Herb has done and what KIPTA has said and what a representative from KYTC has said. So 50K at the most. It might be 40K. We don't know. We have to develop scope of work and so on. So with the budget in front of us, there already is a contingency in there for a small amount of money. So I wanted to mention this just in the period, just the total transparency, that when the time comes and if the council does approve this study for safety along US 42, then we're going to need to spend 40 or 50,000. Some of that could come out of the contingency fund. Some of it, or all of it, could come out of our reserves. We have sufficient reserves by far to pay for that. So I just wanted to say that as we're talking about the budget, I'd like for us to discuss this. Again, there will be a full report on this by the working group at a future regular meeting. I think we have 5,000, let me see, I think on page 5, if I remember correctly. On page 5, we have 5,000, what we call the mayor's discretionary fund, and we have 10,000 for an emergency contingency fund, for a total of 15,000. I thought we had more than that in there, but that's all I can find is that 15.
Greg, at what point will we know what the dollar number of this will be?
Not too much longer, John. The working group is going to meet, now that we know this information soon, and that's up to her to put that meeting together, but I'm guessing that will be in the next week or two. And then once we come up with a scope of work and then run that past the RFP process, I would say we might be able to have it ready by the next regular meeting, what's that, the third week of August.
Yeah.
But it will definitely be ready by September.
Greg, can any of this money for the study come out of the road aid fund?
You know, I guess it could come from anywhere, or it could just come from the general fund. I guess I yield to Laura on that. I don't see why it couldn't, but I'm not sure. Sandra, Laura, what do you all think?
Since we generally use road aid for paving, I would not recommend that, given our current paving needs.
I guess we could at least look. I don't know the answer. I know that the road aid fund is supposed to take care of roads, but even if it's only an academic exercise, I guess we could ask to see.
Yeah, we'll take
Do
a
you have
look at
any-
that.
Do you have any suggestion or no, not a clue? Okay. I don't know either.
It's never come up before.
What about 57, what is it, 14, the engineering study? We have
Well, I think that's one of
28,000
the ones
engineering
he's-
survey application.
I think that's one of the ones that he was talking about as a source of partial funding.
I didn't think it mentioned. I heard contingency and.
Oh, thank you, Don. That's
20,000
it.
there.
Yeah, thank you, Don. That's exactly what I was looking for, and I couldn't find it. Good point. The 5714, to me, that would be the perfect place to take it from. Yeah, thank you. So let's say we did that. And let's say that the study came in at 200,000, so 20% of that would be 40. So we're only off by 12,000 from what is already budgeted. And we have far more sufficient reserves to take care of that. So we could just pay for that out of our general funds. That would be my thinking.
One of the things that we don't have in front of us is how much our reserves are. As of, part of my interest and concern relates to the fact that this year, our taxes will be coming in later than normal. And that matters because the most barren years, the barrenest month we generally face is August to September. And we have to make sure that we can carry all of our day-to-day expenses for that. So it would help us to not only look at our reserves as of June 30th, but what the calls on those reserves will be until this year's date for getting our property taxes in. Because I understand they're moving them out at least 2 months. Is that still correct?
Yes, according to the ad valorem ordinance that you all just passed, our due date is set as November 10th, which is a month and a half later than normal.
Okay.
You know,
Sandra,
Sandra,
on June 30th. Go ahead, Greg.
I'm sorry, Don. I just want to piggyback on what Sandra said. I agree. I was concerned about that as well. You know, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I thought we had around 3 million total. And I thought that we voted, I think unanimously, I don't know what it was, October or November of last year, to set aside 2 million for the pension program. Of course, that's changed a whole lot this April with the House bill and the Senate bill both passing. So that makes that a little less of a threat than it was before. So, but anyway, I was going to bring this up later, but we could ask our auditor to advise us. Perhaps we could reduce the amount of set aside that we have from 2 million down to something else. Again, I was one of the ones that voted for that, but today
Well,
I'm
actually,
thinking,
before we even talk about changing it, it would help to know what it is now. So maybe for our next meeting, we could know what we have set aside, what we need, what will happen from June through November. In other words, a projection of the demands on our reserves based on what we've set aside so far.
So you're kind of looking for a cash flow.
Well, just for the few months coming up.
June 30th, in the 1040 tax for public bank, we had $1.7 million.
Yeah, what I can't begin to approach Greg's 3 million. 1.7 feels more like what it is, but then we've got unusual demands coming up, August, September, and October. Normally, we will have taken in our property taxes by then, and our property taxes are our most significant income. They come in roughly once a year, and our reserves, if you will, have to carry us through the rest of the year. Now that's a simplistic view of the whole thing, because our second most important income source are insurance taxes. And so I'm asking you for something that I realize it's not the simplest thing in the world to create, Laura.
And
I understand.
I can actually provide a preliminary answer because the question of the state of our reserves came up earlier in the year. And I believe it was actually Frank who identified that we ended June 30th, 2019 with 434,000 that was not spoken for. It's not part of the pension obligation. That was free and ready money for us to use. And then we just ended this fiscal year, according to our figures, with a $400,000 surplus. So there's that. But then we also have to consider we're getting ready to start on our audit, and they're going to make all sorts of adjustments to that. So we can't, a preliminary estimate is 800 and some thousand. We've just started bringing in the latest quarterly insurance tax payments. They've just started in the past couple of weeks. So for the next 6 weeks or so, we're going to bring in $250,000, $300,000. So
That still makes September and October feel really scary.
Yeah, well, the thing is, we've already spent like $250,000 this month already.
I understand.
So that's, like I said, very preliminary off the top of my head. I don't have exact numbers to give you, but
Okay,
that's about where we are.
thank you. Could you give us something in writing for the next meeting?
I will see what I can pull together.
You can write estimate all over if
Yeah,
you'd like
there's
to.
estimates all over the place.
Okay.
this is Greg. Perhaps John could invite Don Lawson to our next regular meeting and have him give us his professional opinion.
I can do that. I will do that.
Thank you.
The other person that we wanted to have come to our meeting was somebody who could tell us about HSA and HRAs, because we still have questions that have not been answered in regard to those. Possibly we could invite both of them to the next meeting.
Actually, Benefit Wallet, who handles our HSAs, they were invited and declined.
Why did they decline?
They just said they don't do that. That was the answer I got.
Should we consider putting our money elsewhere?
Well, at this point, it's too late. We've already put our money there.
Tomorrow is another day. Could we know how much we pay them to do whatever it is they do?
Well, it's actually, we don't pay them. For the HSAs, the money goes directly into the employee accounts. And for the HSA, there's 6 of them, 1,900 times 6. My brain is fried, somebody else do the math. And then Benefit Wallet pulls fees out of those contributions. And it's, I think, like $3 a month. So 6 employees,
I'll tell you
$18 a month total times 12.
The question that came up, and I may be stating it too simplistically, is the fact that in the event that the money is used for medical purposes, that is very straightforward. But it looked like, or people thought, that the money could also be, because it's a Visa card, could be spent on a large television set. And our understanding was that in the event that that was true, that that money that was spent on the television set had to be reported as income, and the employee had to pay taxes on it. The concern was, how do these people do that, and have they done it in the past? Because I think there was a thought that unless this was something that all employees received medical benefits from, we wanted to take a healthy look as to how we might look at those in the future. So maybe they'd provide for you in writing how they've done that in the past. If they don't talk to people, maybe they write.
With our BMS card at the fire station, I mean, it's the same company. If I go to check out and it's not an approved item already, it just gets declined. Doesn't matter where I go.
Well, but the amount's already approved. What is, I'm not,
Yeah, whether the amount's in my account or not, that doesn't matter. If I don't go up there and buy, whatever, some formula or some, some headache medicine, if it's not approved on it, like sometimes I'm buying legit medical stuff and it gets denied because it doesn't sound in the system yet.
okay, so
So then I
maybe,
have to
maybe
apply
they
for
could,
reimbursement.
maybe they could tell you that the only things that are approved are things that are recognized medical expenses.
Thing is, I'm not sure because it actually is a debit card. I use mine for my prescriptions. And every time I put the card in the slot, it asks me if I want cash back, and I've never actually done that. But if it asks you that at any debit machine, I don't know how they would track if that's a legitimate medical expense or not. Again, it could be something that it depends on the user reporting it on their taxes and having to deal with the possibility of being audited. But I'll see what I can find out.
Thank you. Since we're still in Public Works, Mr. Fulcher joined us approximately 10 minutes ago. So there are now 5 of us present. Anyway, one of the other things that's come up, and Ms. Swan has mentioned it a number of times, and that is some kind of electronic device so that our maintenance people could keep a record of what projects they're working on, so that ultimately we can go and we can say to our residents, we spend X number of dollars on the parks, we spend X number of dollars on the entrances to the subdivisions. And if we put money for that process in here, I'm not seeing it, I don't know where it is.
I do not have any figures available yet. I have 2 demos scheduled for within the next 2 weeks to check 2 systems out, so.
Okay, does the system also include the hardware?
Yes.
Okay.
Ron, is there a system that they could, just an app that they could download on any of their phones and just track it that way? Maybe even if we had to pay-
One and first and foremost, you're requiring them to use a personal phone, which that's BS. I'm sorry.
No, I agree with you. I don't think you should have to use your personal phone either.
Right. Really, the best way to do is going to be to supply them iPads or something, some type of similar pad that will be, city property. Then you're gonna run into problems too, if they quit or get fired, then you've got somebody out there with your app who can log into your own system. And I don't think that's the way to do it.
No, they'd be city iPads, right?
Or
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah. Could you, since you're going to talk to these people in a couple of weeks, could you at least come up with ballpark figures that we could put in the budget?
Yep, that was the plan with the demos.
Okay.
Ron, did you go, this is Frank, did you have an opportunity to look at the Hunting Creek Drive, the bridge or cover, or whatever you want to call it?
We've already we've discussed that while you were gone.
Okay.
We are going to do an engineering report on it.
So,
Yeah, there are a couple of things. He's going to get an engineering report on that, the amount of one, and the amount of an engineering report on part of the spillway at Putney Pond.
what about dredging on Putney Pond?
We looked into that once before, and that ran into the millions. I've discussed with Linda some and told the Parks Committee that we need to start getting a plan together because we are going to lose Putney's Pond within the next 15 years. It will either be a meadow or with the stream running through it, or we have to fix the pond, one of the two. So I've told the Parks Committee they need to get a plan together.
What action would you recommend this year? Having an authority, give us some sort of an estimate or some sort of idea of what is required. I know you said it costs millions because of some of the environmental issues.
Yeah, what happens is you can't just take that dirt and dump it. It has to be treated and turned and treated and turned and then hauled off. For this year, it's nothing critical. I mean, it's silting in. That's what we're losing it to. Basically, we need to make the decision if we want the pond or a field. Mother Nature's going to fill it in for us.
But we spend a lot of money on the dam, you'd think we'd want a pond.
You'd think.
But we didn't put that dam in. That's been there.
Oh, I understand that. I mean,
We have spent quite a bit working on it, though.
And folks, this is Greg. I had to go look it up because I couldn't remember the name, but I just found it. And I don't know anything about this, but it's called Clockify, CLOCKIFY. Have you heard of that, Ron?
No, I have not.
Well, it's totally free, and it can be. It's designed for small teams. It provides graphs. You can put all of your breaks in there, customizable reports. So for free, I don't know how good it is, but could you
I'm
add
looking
that
for-
to your?
I'm looking for something with more that's designed to handle a workflow because I'm not going to waste my time doing a report that nobody's going to look at. I want something that's going to be useful to Public Works, something that we can log jobs in, track how long it took to do the job, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, it does have a timesheet reporting system, but anyway, it might work for you. Just take a look at it if you would. I'll send it to you. It might not, I just don't know. It's free though.
Well, the criteria for you, Ron, I would think that would be the ability to manage better. And the
Right,
criteria,
that's why I want the workflow.
yeah, and the criteria for the mayor and the council would be that, we don't need to see who's cutting grass, but we do need to see which grass
much?
is being cut in dollars. So
And how much time and that, yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
which is what I'm looking at.
Is there anything else on page 11 that we haven't talked about, Ron? The Public Works page?
No, I think we've covered it.
Oh, I know. I have a question in regard to the roof. I know it has not been repaired around the cupola. How much money do we need for that? And is that in the budget?
Actually, it has been sealed. We have not got the bill for it. They are still in the process. The owner is going to bring a drone out. They think that the cupola actually may have been struck by lightning, fitting for this week. But he's gonna check the lightning rod with a drone to make sure it's not been knocked loose. It didn't leak at all yesterday when it rained, when we got that heavy rain, so what it's doing is it's coming inside the cupola and dripping down the attachment rods to it. And that's where the water was coming from.
I know, I've certainly noticed in the library. Do you think that we need to allocate money for repairing it?
Not at this time. I think he got it yesterday, so.
Okay. Okay. Looking at the project page, which was very helpful, it truly was. And then looking at the Public Works and or other pages that are dealt with, it would help us to have some totals. Now, some of the money on the project page is already in the budget pages, the budget worksheets, and some of them aren't. And somewhere, if we could have a total so that we know how much more we need in the budget if we approve all of this than what we've got in there right now, that would be very beneficial.
It was my plan to update the workbook after today's meeting, so in the next few days, y'all will be getting clean copies.
Will you do it with color so that we can tell it's gonna change?
Actually, what I'll do is, because it's such a lengthy list, I'll probably separate it out, put it at the bottom in a text box with like neon lights and all that.
That'd be good, thank you. Oh, excellent, okay, very helpful. All right, now we finally are reaching page, what is it, 13? Page 13.
I got a question on the projects. The roof of the salt barn. You have a question mark relative to that qualified for road aid. Laura, what do you think?
That was actually a typo. You can strike that out.
That
was
shouldn't have been
discussed
there.
earlier.
Yeah, we talked about that,
Oh,
and it probably doesn't. Although, as long as you're going to ask questions about the other one, you may as well throw this one in.
Actually, the road aid was on the side door refurbished, not the salt bar.
Right.
The salt barn technically could be taken from road aid. It is directly related to roadways.
I've forgotten, do we have our projection for the road aid amount for next year? I think you gave it to us.
Yeah, and it was actually the email I sent you. We are projecting about 85,000 for this year. It's roughly a 12% decrease from what we projected for last year. And in July, we brought in about 7,300, 85,000 divided by 12 is 7,100. So far, so good.
That is excellent, because I know a lot of cities are very concerned about the road aid funds for this year because nobody's driving and it's predicated on gas use.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. That leaves us, now we're at street maintenance on the top of page 13. Harold Shue and Don Gibson and I have been working on paving and street maintenance and trying to get a handle on the status of different streets in the city, and we've been getting professional help from Milestone Engineering. We're at a point right now where we have looked at 3 separate evaluations of the state of the roads in our city. And we are going to, in the next week, be driving them and looking at whether or not any need to be reevaluated. In other words, has there been a change since we did this approximately, 6 months ago? And if there are no changes, then we're looking at putting them in priority order based on these 3 different evaluations, attaching the estimated dollars to them. And what we hope they're going to produce is a document that will allow us to go out for bid with the next year's funds with what we've got from this year, and at least identify the streets that may be done the following year. Using Don Gibson's words, a 2-year plan. Well, it may be a 1.5-year plan, it may be a 3-year plan, depending on the amount of money that we're talking about. But at least we'll have the steps to take in the very near future and the steps to take 1 year out. And our file is roughly 1 inch thick right now, but we've come a long way in terms of getting this information. And this will not change in the sense that the number of dollars will constrict everything that we come up with. We can't spend more than we've got, and we won't spend more than we need. And so these dollars won't change unless you think that something like salt or snow removal needs to change. Our paving will come in at whatever the dollars are that are in the budget. Shall we move on to solid waste? Okay, in regard to solid waste, I know that, I guess I don't know why we came in a little bit over budget in that area this year.
When last year's budget was passed, we still had not completed the housing survey with Rumpke, so we didn't have exact numbers. I think I knew very shortly thereafter that we had underestimated a little bit, so we knew back in September that we were gonna, that we had budgeted less. It was really needed. We just never got around to amending the budget to increase it. And then on top of that, turned out in January, I believe it was, Smithfield Green asked to be added to our recycling service, that they hadn't been getting it before, and that added some extra costs. So the 773,000 is, I took our 2 or 3 most recent bills from Rumpke and picked an average, multiplied it times 12, and got that.
Laura, we spoke of this before, that this year's expense didn't come out to that. There was more money spent than the year just ended. Isn't that correct? It was taken from.
No, well, it depends on which, I think you may have an older version of the workbook. With the amendments made to last year's budget, that ordinance that you all considered last week, we actually spent on solid waste collection last year $767,033.60. That is the real total.
Okay. I do have the old.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Now, this coming year won't change. But we'll need to consider the new developments, the one after that. Okay. I guess now I'm ready to go to landscaping. If anybody else?
I have a question about the solid waste real quick. In the last month, 2 people have asked me why we don't have like a recycling drop off here, like a dumpster out back that they can just put recycling in. Is that something that we've ever done or considered, or will Rumpke charge us for that? You know, it's just a one pickup. I don't know. how it
I don't
works.
know that
Benefits
that's
them.
ever been considered.
Why would they not put it in front of their house?
Well, people passing through, people, businesses, a lot of things, they want to recycle, they want a place to take it.
Oh, but see, that's, again, we'd be providing services that we paid for people who aren't residents. I'm not sure we can do
And you
that.
can't control what's dumped in there.
No,
Well,
the one-
Exactly.
The
There
one-
used to be a dumpster near where I live in Bedford, and I went there to dump my recycling one day and somebody put a TV in there.
yeah.
I think the service that we could provide, and Ron and I have talked about this several times, is the hazardous waste. The paints now have to be hauled all the way out to the other end of town, or the other end of Metro, if you want to get rid of the paints. If we had a program where we could, whoever that contractor is, it's contract for Metro, it's contractor out of Ohio somewhere.
Mhm.
That, you know, they take them twice a week, I think is the deal.
Mhm.
And then they haul them off somewhere.
Well, it depends on what we're talking about. Paints, right now, if it's a relatively full container, is being given to Habitat for Humanities.
I'm talking about old paint,
No, I'm talking about old paint.
solvents. you
Old
know.
paint is they're recycling the old paint now to Habitat for Humanities. If it's, because I took some down in March. honestly.
Oil-based.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah,
latex.
now, the rest of what you're talking about, no, just paints.
Yeah.
And you're
but-
talking about hazardous waste in general,
Yeah,
right?
that would be I think that would be a real service to our community. And I don't know, Ron, have you thought about that? We talked about this maybe a year or two ago. That we could develop.
No, let's not come back up.
Yeah,
Well, we could look into it. We also used to have a shredding event,
Yeah.
which was well attended the first couple of times we did it. We've had drug drop-offs over time. Maybe we need to think about doing some things like that
Yeah,
in
well,
the future.
I would, reason I'm bringing it up in the context of the budget is if we had to contract somebody, some hazardous waste, company.
We'll take it out of the mayor's contingency fund.
Well, we could make it a line item. We got to talk about that. I think it's-
We could do a
Design
recycling
it.
event line
In the
item.
last couple of years, I would go around to my neighbors and I'd make a run, take their stuff down. I don't have a pickup truck anymore, so
Too bad. I've got stuff in my basement I'd love to give you.
I'm gonna take mine up to Indiana so they can burn it.
Mm.
But that's not the right thing to do.
Okay. In regard to, are we at to landscape or are we still recycling?
Well, Ron, I'd like you to look into that if you would. You're not listening. You hear me? Can't hear Ron.
I'm sorry, Frank, do what?
Would you look into that? I mean, it's not an emergency. Would you do that, please?
Got it.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're at landscape maintenance. One of the things that I have not ever been able to come to grips with is what projects, I don't want that word, what pieces of land our contract deals with in mowing and what we mow and what landscaping is included in the contract and what's extra.
Well, I'll give you a copy of the contract.
That'd be a great place to start.
It spells it out.
That would help. That would be good.
Did you email that to everybody?
Okay, Ron, can you tell us what's in entrance and common area maintenance? What kinds of things are in there?
It's pretty self-explanatory.
Is it in any of the projects?
Actually, some of it is, yes.
Well, maybe we can break that out in the next run. Is that okay, Laura?
The entrance to the landings would be common area maintenance.
No, the landings is.
Basically, if we're replacing any lights or any damage that's repaired, that type of thing.
No, the landings is in 7412, Public Works Infrastructure.
That was just where we put it for a placeholder.
Well, when you give us the new sheet, can you tell us what's in here and what isn't in here? Okay. Okay. The irrigation systems. I know you've had a lot of trouble over the years with those.
I've always said irrigation and irritation are one letter off for a reason.
Okay, tell us what the $10,000 will cover and what it won't cover.
It won't cover new systems. What it does cover is the repairs to the systems, which irrigation systems, if anybody's ever owned one, they're constantly got heads breaking and lines busting and valves sticking. That covers all that. It covers startup, shutdown.
Is there a number of visits a year or some empirical criteria for that? I mean,
We do not have a contract for irrigation. It's on an as-needed basis.
per diem basis or per visit, hour or what?
Yes. Well, by the hour, yeah.
Is it something, it's something that you said that your guys do?
No,
No,
no.
not at all, okay.
Are there any places, you started with new, are there any places where you think we need them that we don't have sprinklers?
Emphatically, no. I do not want to add any more systems.
Dead plants, what can I tell you?
If there's not water there, don't plant there.
Oh, back to mulch, huh? Okay. But if we look at what you've got in there, you've got $7,500, which gives you very little for disasters. Is that enough?
If we want a crystal ball plan, no. For normal years, yes, that's plenty.
Well, you can also look at the recent history. If you go back to 2015 and 2016, we were replacing systems then, but 2017, 2018, we spent just under 7,000. And for this past year, which Frank, you've got an older version, we spent about 9,300 on irrigation work, and that's including what we knew about and then the repairs that we didn't know about.
So 10,000 might be short by about $2,000.
It's possible. I mean, this is one of those things that's kind of hard to guess. You can just look at history and cross your fingers and hope for the best.
Typically, when you started back up, you'll find
Mhm.
heads off and working, and you'll get everything.
Okay, what's common area electrical?
That would be the electric in the common areas like the entrances and, actually, yeah, that would include like, the electric at Cali Park. Um,
What
Pretty
type of what type of activities? Are these just maintenance type things? Replacing
Um,
light bulbs or, you know,
No, it's the electric systems themselves. Um, Wall outlets, lights for the entrances. Um,
installing them or maintaining them? Well, installing means you're putting new stuff in, at least in my mind.
Yeah, generally, yeah. Um, It covers both.
Is it replacement? When you say new, is it replacement or is it
Yes.
a planned
Yes.
expansion?
Yeah, generally, we don't put new positions in. It's replacing the existing lights.
So you think it's going to go up by 50%, Ron? From last year's budget? So $7,500, is that what you're saying, as opposed to we spent 2,800 last time?
Yep, we do have some lights that need replacing, so. And we have been going to LED lights, so.
And the upgrades to Hunting Creek that Randy has been asking about for the Christmas lights, they would fall under this.
It's not in a
That's
project.
not been
Yeah,
added.
It is because we don't have a dollar amount yet.
Right.
So,
So this may be a figure that's subject to change. Okay,
Yes.
Correct.
and that's where you're gonna put it. Okay, and I really applaud you putting tree maintenance under tree maintenance instead of under landscape, which is fine. And when we come down to tree planting, we've already asked the question as to the money, why are we not looking at using the money that is currently existing as restricted? And we don't have an answer yet. So this one's a little nebulous. In regard to removals and pruning, why they're part of tree maintenance now, correct?
yes.
I
Okay.
have a question on the maintenance of these new trees that are proposed. There's in the proposal, there are these gator bags, and those are labor intensive, aren't they, Ron?
They are.
Is there money in here to do that? Or is it just buried somewhere in general activities?
That would be in tree maintenance, yeah.
How many gator bags are in there? I haven't had a chance to look at that.
We're all eight. All trees that-
How often do they have to get filled in this summer?
That depends on the weather.
Looking at the forestation report that we got, and on the page that shows the cost of $63.25, there's an asterisk next to that price, and it says that this price includes the trees, the planting of the trees, the trunk protection, and the gator bags.
Right, and we, as Frank established, the gator bags are labor intensive. They're filled by our maintenance people. And what we're looking at is how labor intensive are they? If we fill one in the heat of summer, when do we have to go back and fill it a second time?
The
They
next
take
day,
they take about 4 hours to drain.
the next day.
4 days, 4 hours.
4 hours?
4 hours per bag, is that what you said?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's about average.
And you use the tank on the back of the truck?
They take about 4 hours to drain.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but how often do you
They
fill
take,
refill?
they take minutes to fill.
Yeah, a couple minutes per bag to fill it, 4 hours to drain. Do you refill it multiple times a day or just once a day then?
No. Average during the drought last year, we did them twice a week.
Okay.
And did the plants live?
Most of them, yeah. The biggest thing discounted is what I said earlier. If there's not water there, don't plant there would help. So
So how many big gator bags do we have in the city? Just off the top of your head
13, 14
right now?
currently, yeah.
So we're increasing by about a third the demand on our maintenance personnel.
Correct.
It's pretty widespread. I mean, you got one down at the far end of
Yeah, they're all over.
Innisbrook. And then around, it's travel time, probably more than the time to fill it.
We talked about, Mr. Fulcher, we talked about the plan, the forestation plan. I haven't had a chance to read it, and one of my questions related to why we were not looking at the restricted funds that we have in the budget now. So we'll be coming back to that at one of our future meetings. Okay, in regard to, I noticed that our insecticide treatments are going down. Are we going to have half fewer bugs next year? How did we decide that?
We've just been doing fewer treatments.
Actually, last year, yeah, we just did one treatment in the fall. And then we had a whole bunch of irrigation repairs, and we kind of had to spread those bills out throughout the entire non-contractual maintenance budget. And so we just said, well, we aren't going to do a spring treatment. So that's why we only spent 260 last year. So we figured double that, you've got right around $500.
Okay.
And there are other treatments that are included in our contract, so.
Okay, so the bulk of the tree maintenance money is taking trees out or pruning or after planting care, which is not part of any contract or part of our maintenance people.
Correct.
When do, I can see tree removal, but what about the other two?
Well, actually, like the mayor's asked that some of the trees that the city owns be trimmed back off of Hunting Creek Drive. That would be a good example.
So that's what this is for?
Yes, things like that, things that are too big or too high up for us to take care of ourselves.
So we are going to start measuring the 13 feet and abiding by our ordinance? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's code enforcement.
Somebody's got to do it, and it's going to cost money from somewhere. I mean, it's not just Hunting Creek Drive. If you drive through the estates of Hunting Creek,
Bridge points.
Bridgepoint,
Got a lot of
I mean,
ones.
we just it's been neglected for quite a while. So it's
A lot of those city trees, if they're not city trees, we don't do them.
well, in the median in the estates of Hunting Creek, is that our property or is that belong to somebody else?
The median in the estates is, yes.
Okay, well, I was referring to that median.
Do you
I'm
think
not
that
aware
this
of
is
anything hanging
adequate?
in the road up there.
Pardon?
Do you think this is an adequate amount of money for what you're talking about?
I'm trying to get a handle on whether Ron's folks do it or it has to be subcontracted. If it's subcontracted, we ought to be able to get a ballpark figure from somebody.
That's on a as needed basis. I mean,
Well, I think from what I understand, this is not going to be a catch as catch can basis. This is going to be a citywide attempt to bring all our trees into conformance with our ordinance. And
that would be code
only after,
enforcement. I'm not privy to that.
only after we do it ourselves can we tell people they've got to do it. I mean, tell somebody that's got overhanging trees, they're going to say, well, what about that one right there? That's a city. Why isn't the city doing their job?
I have not been made aware of that plan, so I can't plan for it, Frank.
Okay. Well, I guess that's going to be the mayor's call, whether we enforce the ordinances or not, and whether we comply with them as a city. And if we do, it's going to take money, and that's where we get back to the budget.
So I still don't understand. Do you think this is an appropriate amount?
I don't know. If Ron's folks do it, 13.6 doesn't seem like a very high level to be trimming trees. I think Ron's folks can do it, and we don't really need a lot of money in here, other than for fallen trees or something like that. Well, even at that, Ron's folks do it. Except where you need to rent equipment or something for heavy logs. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that would be pretty accurate. Yeah.
So who knows?
We done with that one? So we're still adamant about having the professional horticulture consult?
I am not. But
Okay.
Well, I'm not personally either. But I can tell you that I go to all the forestation board meetings, and they say that they can't operate without her. And it even sounded to me like they were threatening to resign if we didn't have her.
This is Greg. My vote is to keep her. She's extremely valuable. I say that as a past member of the Forestation Board. And I know the value that this person brings to that committee, the board. So, and it's worth every penny, in my opinion.
Well, is it something that we need to have her spending as much time with, or can we engage her on an as needed basis?
Well, they already do. I think they already do that. I haven't been on the board in a couple of years, but I'm looking at the past amount of money, and it's already half of what it used to be. So I think they're already being as conservative as they can with that expenditure. That'd be my opinion.
Well, when you say half of what it used to be, was Andrea was in charge of all of the work that our contract landscaping company does. And she would go around and supervise how they prune things. And then we stopped doing that when we got Greenscapes, because they had their own horticulture expert working for them at that time. And so she quit. Actually, we didn't fire her, she quit when Greenscapes got hired. And then the forestation board got very upset, and they wanted to get Andrea as their arborist, and that's when she came on at her current annual salary.
And I believe her current agreement stipulates that she gives the forestation board approximately 10 hours per month, including attending their meetings.
And that's this number represents.
I think the big thing for me would be that she just knows so much. I mean, a lot of the people that work on the forestation board, they are intelligent people, but there are so many things to know about trees. And Andrea possesses that in-depth knowledge. I think we need that.
I'm not saying she doesn't. I mean, I don't even know her. But that ends up being $77 an hour if she does the 10 hours. Is there any way we can track how many hours she actually spends on it? And it might be that it's well worth it and she's spending 20 or 25 hours a month on it. But if we find out she's only spending 2 or 3, and attending one meeting at that point, is it worth it? I don't know. And everyone here is probably the wrong people to ask, but forestation board would probably be the answer.
Well, I think that Greg is correct that the forestation board probably would not function if she did not provide input. I guess then you step back and say, okay, what is the goal of the entire process? And is this a good way of accomplishing it? And at least I'm not ready to make a decision like that. I don't know enough.
Well, let me chime in. I go to all their meetings, and I believe that the forestation board, some of them would certainly resign if you dropped Andrea.
Is that a recommendation?
I'm not going to go that far publicly.
Well, we'll take it under advisement. When we get down to parks maintenance, one of the things we've been given as we've come in today is a parks maintenance budget request. And to me, everything that is on their request is considered in this page 13. Is that correct?
Laura, we can't hear you.
I'd like to make some rude comments about these microphones. Linda Wardell originally sent me her budget request back in January or February, when the world was very much different. When the coronavirus, the pandemic, really hit, I got in touch with her and I said, maybe we should take off this funding request that would encourage group gatherings, and she agreed with me. So that's the one item that's not included in the workbook.
Okay, and so when we talked before, one of our other meetings, the $14,000 for parks maintenance includes the canoe launch, which is being worked on. It also included $4,500 for Putney Pond. Now, if I put both of those together, we don't have much left for the rest of this year. Is that enough money?
Well, the 14,000 that's in the current request, that's the 6,500 that the Parks Committee asked for, plus the 7,500 that we've spent on the boat launch and the dam.
What about the Putney Pond, 4,500?
Yeah, that's included in there. The boat launch was 3,000 and the dam was 4,500.
Okay.
For a total 7,500. Yeah, that's
Okay.
6,500 to get 14,000.
Okay, then the rest of the money, they're removing trees. Why is that here? Why isn't that under tree maintenance?
That's major trees that fall and block trails that back in the, back in the deep end of the parks, the majority of them we can handle ourselves. Occasionally we get one that's above our skill level or above our capabilities and we have to hire somebody to do it.
Okay, but instead of putting that under parks, why are we not putting it under tree maintenance?
Because it's generally in the parks. We've been taking it out of the parks budget.
How about the
I'm sure they'd be
repair?
happy if you took it out somewhere else.
I just sometimes, no, I don't have trouble with that. We look at some of these things and we don't always deal with where we're getting the services from or what they're contributing to. And like the park signs, are they in this park maintenance budget too?
They are.
$6,500. Park signs is needed to communicate regulations, safety, and trail information.
Yeah, not. So they're not duplicated anywhere else in the budget by accident.
How do structures differ from the Boy Scout projects? Anybody?
So
Nobody?
I mean, I may be able to answer. I mean, when there's damage to, like when the bridge is, the Boy Scouts don't go there and fix it. Boy Scouts are the ones that maybe install the bridge or whatever. I'll put in the trail, but for the maintenance and upkeep of when it gets damaged, structures, what needs to be repaired, replaced,
So is it labor and material or is it just material?
and I have to defer to Ron.
Well,
If it's just material, I'm not sure.
it would have to be just material.
I'm sorry, guys, I stepped away for a minute.
Well, we cut the whole budget, but you didn't have a chance to defend yourself.
Oh, darn it.
Frank was asking about structures in the park, being that there's $1,000 in there, and I explained to him, he asked why that was different than Boy Scouts. I said Boy Scouts are what generally build the project and then we maintain them, correct? So if
Correct.
the bridge washes away or something. Then he followed up with a question that said, is that just material and then the maintenance is on you? With your
Correct.
funds? Okay. So $1,000 is just material for any structures that we have to redo.
Okay, but it isn't. If we look at the document that we're given, I go back to Frank's question because we're repairing bridges under maintenance at 6,500, but we are taking and replacing an existing bridge under structures for $1,000. And I guess the question becomes, why are we building this $1,000 structure instead of having it as a Boy Scout project?
Well, the biggest reason is the Boy Scouts do everything on a volunteer basis for when they go for their Eagle badges. We have no control of when they're going to go for their Eagle badges.
It's a very good answer.
If there's nobody to build the project, we can't have one.
Uh-huh.
Well, it seems like a duplication because above in maintenance specifically says repair of bridges, etc.
But this 1,000 is not a really repair, it's a replacement.
No. It's described as a repair.
What line are you looking at, Frank, for bridge
They're
replacement?
building a new bridge.
They're building a new bridge,
Building a new bridge.
moving the trail, the eroded area, building a new bridge.
I don't know how big, I don't know what this bridge is. How big it is. You have,
I don't know exactly, I have not been out there since the storm last, but apparently it's pretty bad.
how big is the bridge? I mean,
Well, I don't know which one specifically it is. I think it's the 10-foot long one, 10-foot long bridge.
oh, that's okay. If you're gonna replace that, $1,000 isn't enough.
Okay, then the question on this is, what bridge are we replacing?
Ron, do you know which one it is?
I'm trying to figure out where you guys are at.
That $1,000 in parks for
Bridge structure.
replacing the bridge
On the
structures.
Blue Trail, replace the bridge on the Blue Trail.
Give me just a second to catch up to you. Oh, that is the first ravine on the Blue Trail. It was originally, the trail was cut through it. And it is eroded out to the point that it's becoming dangerous. So they're gonna move the trail up the hill and it will be a new bridge.
Who is they?
Well, the Parks Committee. Yeah. This will not be a Boy Scout project.
I mean, who's gonna do the physical work? Are your guys gonna do it? We're gonna subcontract it?
I haven't even looked at it yet, so I could not tell you. I'm not sure how big that bridge would have to be. Normally, we subcontract that out because it's a little bit too big of a job to ask the Boy Scouts to do.
Well, what about your guys?
So that's above our pay grade.
I didn't hear that.
I said, that's above our pay grade. That's something that has to be done by somebody who actually knows how to build a real bridge. That's not something we can just slap together.
Well, again, then this doesn't sound like it's enough money.
Oh, I mean, if you're relocating a trail, and putting a bridge.
That part's easy. That's the easy part.
Yeah, it is.
But if you, $1,000 isn't enough unless you're reusing the same bridge.
Well, they're going, this is another one of those things where we need to have you look into it, come back to us with something that's a little firmer so that we know what we're saying yes to.
We could all walk back there and look at it.
Let's go.
How would we know which one?
It's the first ravine on the Blue Trail.
All right, Harold's gonna go and take pictures.
Yeah, Harold's gonna go out and check it for us.
Or send his kids.
I'll send the kids.
Uh-huh. Okay, page 14. Unless somebody has something else, we're obviously, we're going to get a revised worksheet. We will need to have another meeting before we're ready to talk about the next step forward, or which we can do at that meeting. I want to caution you that if you look at what we've got now, and we've talked about many, many things since we've had these numbers done, we already were $14,000 over budget. We would have had to cut $14,000 somewhere to balance this budget. We've talked about many more things, and I think this number will increase dramatically in the next worksheet that you give us. And I just say that because I want to go back to Randy Swan's words. There's nothing that we've looked at so far that is cast in concrete, that is approved, because until we look at how we balance the budget, we can't do any individual items. So the next step will be to look at what's submitted to us. And we had talked about putting together a group of 3 people on the council to identify specific areas that have come up as issues, and then to bring those forward to the group as a whole. The group can say this committee of 3 made mistakes and there need to be additions, or we're not going to make any subtractions, but there can be additions. And then that will come back to all of the group as a whole at our meeting, 2 meetings out.
One was.
Because you can't subtract what I put on there.
Oh,
So,
Oh.
no, but that's the reason, so that one person can't nullify another person's participation. I mean, the fact that I think A is important and you think B is important, both A and B need to be on the list.
for discussion.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Sandra, this group of 3 that you're talking about, I don't quite understand the reasoning behind that. Why would we not just keep discussing it as a group of 6 and flush everything out. What are we doing with this group of three? I
We
don't
might have another 5 hours worth of meetings. The group of three is only to do the preliminary identification of the areas that have come up as issues as we've been talking. You would have the right to look at whatever they've written and add anything you think has been neglected. And then the talk would come to the group, but at least we'd be slightly focused by the time we came back together again.
Who are the three going to be?
We have not determined that. We have not made that determination. We could do that at our next meeting.
The council as a whole needs to pick the three.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
I guess it's okay. My concern would be that I do want to still remain totally transparent. I like the idea that we're all discussing each and every item in front of each and every one of the rest of us. So I'll talk to you about that on the side, Sandra, trying to get more information. I'm still confused about how that would work and why we're doing that.
Certainly.
I think just
I
look
heard
at
what you
it,
said.
Greg, look at it as a committee that's going to submit a report for review.
That's exactly what I am doing, and that's frankly what kind of,
Yeah, I wouldn't look at it that way. I would look at it as a list of items that have been raised. There's no report. There's no recommendations. There's no potential outcome. It's literally just what have you that have been raised as issues as we've gone through. And then I agree with you. We do need to talk as a whole on each one of those issues separately.
thank you.
Back to the structures real quick. I just sent Linda a message. She's responded back to me. That's the recommendation is $1,000. They're have to get an estimate, but they said about $1,000. So they're pretty close. They're pretty confident they're that close.
Did they tell you which bridge so you can look at it?
No, but I'll just go hike the whole trail twice and figure it out.
All right, it's 5 o'clock. Shall we dismiss?
You guys said follow-up meeting?
When would we like to meet again? Laura, that's a good, when would you have the extra information we requested ready?
As long as y'all don't throw 3,000 things at me, I could probably have it by 2 o'clock tomorrow.
So if we met next Tuesday again, that would be fine. Okay. Is next Tuesday?
August 4th?
I will be able to. If I'm available, I'll take it.
Okay. Are you out of town all week?
Yeah.
Okay. If we do it on the 4th, Carol will not be here, so we need to keep an eye on a quorum.
But what about the 5th or the 3rd?
I'm gone all week.
Oh,
So
sorry.
don't rely on me, but I'll try to attend virtually if I can get some service.
Well, I hate to miss Harold. What about this week? If we met, say, Friday, or what about Friday?
I don't have a good amount, I don't have a good afternoon this week.
Okay.
Same time next week.
Okay, 3 o'clock, August 4th.
Okay. I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed, you're adjourned.
Thank you. So.